I want to welcome all of you to a meeting with the leader, one of the leaders of defending Israel, standing up for the Jewish state today, especially in the digital way, in a time of war in the media, Daniel Rosen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Daniel, I know that you really initiated a creation of something very unique, and this is a new app called
Emissary. Yes.
Can you tell us more a little bit the app, and then we'll talk about why you did it. First of all, what kind of app is that? Why this app is important? Why can't we just use WhatsApp or other existing systems?
Well, I'll tell you. I was a student at NYU between 1998 and 2002. And during that time, I was an activist. We led rallies and protests and letter writing campaigns. That was during the Second Intifada. And, we were quite successful in many different ways. And when I graduated in 2002, I thought that part of my life was over. I moved into the private sector. And I continued on for the last 22 years until October 7th. And after October 7th, really starting on October 8th, what we saw on the streets and what we saw on social media was this virulent type of anti-Semitism that really shocked me, and it kind of recalibrated myself. I became recalibrated, and I refer to this the great recalibration among many of us.
Awakening experience.
An awakening, exactly, an understanding that I couldn't afford to sit on the sidelines any longer, and began to ask questions: what's happening here, and why is it happening? And we understood that social media is playing a huge role in affecting the minds of not just young people, but mainly young people, and how they approached Judaism, Jewish people, Israel. And we've understood that if we want to have an impact on how they thought for this generation and the next generation and the next generation, we had to have our voice heard, amplified, and unified on social media. Because if we didn't, we'd leave that void open for others to fill. And that's essentially what's happened. So in that understanding, we decided that we had to do something. And so we created this app which allows people, all people, Jewish people and non-Jewish people, to work in a coordinated way to combat anti-Semitism on social media. And we began after, the last 18 months, we've been working very diligently towards that goal. And we have a live app that's working right now. And we've begun the process of fighting back.
If I understand you correctly, that you said, first of all, you want our voices to be amplified. It means we first of all have a voice, we have to have an opinion. In other words, first of all, we need to create content. It is content creation. And that's very important, what kind of message we're sharing with our community, with the world, and what we stand for. So this is very creative and at the same time very important way to articulate our message in a clear way. It's one way. It's not to do with the app. It's to do with content creation. And then this message, this voice has to be amplified. And that is about the app. But first of all, let's focus on the message itself. This app, Emissary, creates its own message, amplifies other messages.
Yes. So there is a lot of great content out there already. Okay. Our goal is to amplify messages that are both combating anti-Semitism and promoting pro-Semitism. So there's already lots of great content out there. There are different influencers, videos, different statistics, articles that already exist. Now, creating content is another useful thing to do. The app as it stands today aggregates content that already exists and puts it in that one place.
Beautiful. So in other words, aggregates, or you choose the best messages out there and then you collect them all and you amplify them.
That's right.
But then someone has to actually notice other messages.
Yes.
And who's doing that?
So we have a professional staff of content curators, and essentially we choose reputable sources that we deem to be correct or kosher, and then that's what we put up. And we have partnerships, and so we have sources that we trust. And the idea is for the end user to look at the app and say, yes, I agree, this is good content, this is content that I trust, this is content that is kosher to me, and you can rely on that to upload and to share that content.
I want to say that the word kosher actually in Hebrew means matim, it fits. doesn't have actually necessarily any religious, spiritual meaning, but it means really it's something fitting, right? So what makes the content fitting for you?
So our goal is to have a large tent, because if we're going to be successful, we need participation, what we call everywhere from the center left to the center right. And interestingly, we have support from the Reformed movement in Judaism, the conservative, and the Orthodox. And that's very uncommon to have. And we have it because we're explicitly non-political. And there's so much good content. It's a very easy thing from my perspective to say, hey, anti-Semitism is bad. And that's essentially our message. And bigotry is bigotry, no matter if it's anti-Semitism or coming from any other place. And that's a very basic message, and that's the message that we want to promote. And so that's the type of content that we're really interested in. And also the notion of pro-Semitism, the idea of sharing positive stories, not just negative stories, but it's positive things that happen in the world all the time.
And amplifying, what does it mean you amplify the messages? How is this amplification actually taking place?
So there's an assumption by many and by some that there are so many anti-Semitic people in the world or on social media. And I would argue, too, that there are some, but it's not nearly as many as we may think. Now, the whole country is watching social media, but there's a much smaller group of people who are very organized and very passionate, and they amplify their voices in a negative way. And what we need to do is to become organized and united and have similar messages. And that way, when we work in a coordinated way, we can amplify our voices. That's what we mean by amplifying our voices.
So how it's happening technically?
Okay. So there's 3 parts to the app. I'm going to skip to answering your question, which is this idea. There's this piece called Emissary Connect. The way it works is like this. Once you sign up, you're asked a few questions to understand, are you more of a TikToker? Are you more of a Facebooker? Are you someone who's maybe a little bit more center left or center right? Are you more religious? Are you less religious? Are you more inclined? Are you wanting to be more active, less active? Based on that, we put you into a group, right? And then imagine many, many groups, all comprised of maybe 50 people. And imagine a community and a community and a community and a huge, massive amount of people all working. And you're essentially given a mission, where an example of it would be, let's say, do you remember, Rabbi, when CNN came out and said Israel bombed Shifa Hospital?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
We found out it was Islamic Jihad who did that.
Correct.
And so what we saw at the time was something along the lines of Palestine, 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 Israel, Palestine, Palestine, Israel. And it seemed like everyone was against Israel. Now, had we had this built already, we could have directed thousands of people to the CNN pages, to the Facebook page, to the comment section, and given them a mission to say, that's not true. That was Islamic Jihad. What you're saying is false, fake news. And what we would have then seen was something closer to Israel, Israel, Palestine, Palestine, Israel, Palestine, Israel, Palestine. And the conversation begins to become more balanced. And that's what I mean by coordinated action. So we're given missions or directives, and we're told to go into the center square and comment and act in different places. And together we can become very powerful.
Actually, there are about 2 billion Muslims and just like 14 million Jews. So in terms of numbers game between Jews and potentially those who support Palestinians, we have no chance, because you have also all the globalists and anti-Semites within the general population as well. So when they join forces, we outnumber.
Well, I'll say this. There's a few responses to that. The first is that, first of all, there are just as many Jewish people in the United States as there are Muslims today. That's a fact. Now, there used to be many more Jewish people here. They've caught up. But we still have numbers here in the United States. That's the first point. The second point is that you can make the same argument about Israel. Israel sits in the Middle East among billions of Muslims, but yet how are they the global the regional superpower? How did they have such a wonderful army, and how are they able to do it? It's through their intelligence, their organization, that they're able to. And I would say similarly, we too can do the same thing here. And the third response would be to say that, yes, the challenges are immense. There's no one here denying the challenges are immense. But we must do all that we can and the best that we can. And that's what we're going to do.
I would even give another response, and I actually was expecting you to give it, and I'm sure that you're going to agree with me. Our response is that Jews are not alone. And when we stand for truth and for values that many, many nations actually share together with us, democracy, freedom, many other nations will actually support our messages against extremists.
I agree completely. We have millions and tens of millions of supporters who agree with us that hate is hate no matter where it comes from. So sometimes it feels like we're alone, but we're actually not alone. So I agree.
And therefore the app is not really designed for Jews alone.
That's right.
And you would love to include other people, and therefore they possibly be some groups of actually Christians supporting Israel, or maybe even Muslims who are against terrorism or extremism as well.
Absolutely.
And these voices, by the way, I think crucial for defeating terrorism or defeating extremism from their side.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said earlier, we're looking for Jewish and non-Jewish people. We have partnerships in place already, and they're continuing to develop with Kufi, which is the Christian United on campus. We have a Fellowship for Christians and Jews who we've been in close touch with, and we believe that we want to be friends with all who want to be our friends. We believe that the Southeast Asian communities are very good partners, and there's, again, anyone who wants to be friends with us and allies with us, we too want to be their friend, and it's absolutely an important part of what we're trying to do.
Possibly Indians understand because they also suffered from Muslim extremism.
That's right.
At the same time, do you have any ties with actually Muslims more, anti-extremist groups?
So we've been doing this for about 18 months now. And it's a function of time, people. And so as we develop, as I say, all those who want to be our friends, we too want to be their friends. But we're not going to chase after people who don't want to be our friends. If you want to be my friend, I also want to be your friend. And if you don't, we're not going to chase after you.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are. We hear voices of Muslim Arab leaders who actually in support of Israel.
Wonderful.
We have these voices, so
yeah.
Maybe we need it's the next step of the development.
Exactly.
And I think it's very crucial
Exactly.
actually, because that's going to affect the world that you argue with in some ways more than the Jewish or Christian voices.
I mean, that would be a wonderful miracle
development.
For it to happen.
That's very, very
it would be a
important.
wonderful thing to happen.
I remember actually speaking about after September 11th tragedy on my radio program, and I said that we will not be able to defeat terrorism just by the means of missiles. We need words. And actually, in a way, called for more cooperation with the more moderate Muslim world, because the more moderate Muslim world provides some hope of moderation within this world. We cannot do it externally. It has to come from within.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. I mean, I'll say this, that they said there's 7 fronts that Israel's dealing with.
Correct.
And I'll tell you there's 8 fronts.
Correct.
8
and
fronts.
the 8th one is maybe...
Is here.
It's here,
It's
correct.
for the minds and hearts of the average American.
Right.
And so what we're engaged in is not just a hobby or something. It's something that's actually crucial to the future, to the current situation, but even more importantly to the future. And so I encourage all people who want to be involved and understand the importance of this to get involved, because this truly isn't the 8th front of this challenge.
Actually, we have a program in Israel. We also call it RAJE or RISE, our program in Israel. And we had an annual conference. And the annual conference we called the annual conference the Battle for the Minds and Hearts. It was all dedicated to the media. Come here. So meanwhile, we have our amazing. Come, take a seat over here. Take a seat. Meanwhile, take a seat over here. So we are interviewing our amazing leader. Please join us all. Come here. Come here. Come. You're welcome to join us. Okay. How are you? Wow, look at this. What an amazing. We have an amazing.
Hello, Rabbi.
Yeah,
Hello,
we have an amazing audience. Come, guys. Okay, very good. Come, we have an amazing audience, and we're speaking about an app called Emissary. We're actually recording something. Please take a seat. And an interesting question that I asked Daniel Rosen about this app, because this app amplifies the voices of Israel advocacy. And we have within our audience today people who really, their minds and their hearts for Israel. They do so much. Some of them just came from Israel. Some of their brothers are fighting in the IDF, and they're here to support their fight with words that will affect the minds and hearts of other people. And when you're speaking about amplification, we discussed what kind of content we can create in order to affect, or how we can choose the best content which is out there. But how does it actually work, amplification technically? Why can't we make 20 or 50 people together in a group, let's say WhatsApp group, and you have these WhatsApp groups in a WhatsApp channel? What's the difference between emissary and what do you give us as an emissary more than we can make with our RAJE groups that already exist?
Okay, well, first of all, Emissary's goal is to create a network comprised of millions of people, Jewish and non-Jewish people, to work together on social media. We saw after October 7th how the Jewish community, if they even responded at all, were disjointed. Everyone kind of feels on their own, a lone voice in the wilderness. And so the idea is to bring people together onto one network to amplify our voices. So one voice becomes 10, becomes 100, becomes 1,000, and together we can become much more powerful.
How does it work? Let's say you hear that Israel bombed a hospital in Gaza.
Right.
Well, jihad did it actually. So what do you do? How do you respond?
So basically, let's assume you guys all sign up for this, right? You get put into a group or a unit, and each group or unit has, and each participant is called an emissary, right? And each group has a champion as the leader of the group. Now a mission comes down, or a directive comes down and says, okay, everyone in these 10 groups, right, go to the CNN page right now and comment and say, it wasn't Israel, it was Islamic Jihad. And suddenly you have 1,000 people commenting in one place at one time. And the effect of that would be, we overwhelm the system. And so then instead of what we saw at the time, which was Palestine, Palestine, Israel, Palestine, 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 Israel, we start to change the conversation. It becomes closer to Palestine, Palestine, Israel, Israel, Palestine, Israel. And then that's how I want to give another example, okay? Let's say you have an influencer out there who's out there constantly saying anti-Semitic things, anti-Zionistic things constantly, right? And they think it's in vogue. They think it's cool to do it, right? So we identify this person. Maybe you identify him and you let us know. At that point, we send 1,000 people to that person, or 10,000 people to that person's page, and we say, hey, are you aware that you're being anti-Semitic? Are you aware that things you're saying is a form of bigotry? That's not cool, right? Suddenly, that influencer looks at his page, and he says, this is not good for my brand. This is not good for me. And then hopefully the next thing they say is about something else, or something more balanced. And that's how we begin to influence culture. And imagine a linear line. The more people we have acting, the more impactful we can be. And that's in the center square. It's not me talking to you and you and you who all agree. It's going into the center square, and that's a big difference. Today, as it stands, most people are talking to themselves. We want to get out into the public, and we want to try and change the way people are thinking.
Any questions? Any questions? How does it work? Of course, I can just comment what I think about it. I know that Russians cheat. Russians are liars. And they have many robots. But these are not Russians. These are Russian Jews, or Russian-speaking Jews. Many of them didn't come from Russia, from Ukraine and other parts of the world. I came from Russia. But when I said Russians cheat, I mean the KGB. And the KGB interferes here in the United States in elections campaigns and all over the world. And what they do, they create bots or robots. And they can overwhelm anything they want. So you're going to get all these 50 people, they're going to get 1,000 fake accounts on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok, and direct them all against you, and you're going to be overwhelmed. What do you do?
Okay, so
first, and why don't we do just that instead of making emissary?
Right.
And
so first of all, we are doing this, not us, but there is many efforts that we know about, that we don't know about, which are dealing with this issue, right? So that's the first point. There are people doing this. What we're dealing with is more narrow. We're talking about the power of people, of real humans, okay? And I hate to always talk about military analogies, but if you can imagine, any military has many different parts to it, right? You have your Navy, you have your Air Force, you have your ground soldiers, you have your artillery, you have your tanks, you have all that, right? And what we represent here are the ground troops. And nothing, you can't have a real good army without ground troops. So nothing replaces the power of people. This is my answer.
And nothing replaces our leader, Daniel. We want to thank Daniel so much. Daniel, thank you so much.